Today's podcast is brought to you by Microsoft's new podcast, Security Unlocked. You can find links down in the description below. And here we are. It's Friday.
Thank God.
Yeah. I thought about boozing it on this one because it's...
Yeah. See, the appeal of, I will say, you know me. I mean, we go out, on a work trip or something, go to a bar. I mean, I'm good to go. Like, I'm stupid. But I don't feel like I can drink during the day anymore. Like, I used to do this occasionally, like for a podcast or something. Like Andrew and I would do that. And I know myself enough. Like, if I had a drink right now, I would be useless for the rest of the day. And then it would just ruin whatever was going to happen tonight,
Yeah. So
I just don't, I can't.
No, my usual go-to is I usually have like a drink when I play an Xbox at night. Like that's because, especially because one of the guys just had ACL surgery and I call him Hoppy and
nice.
and I'll drink like an IPA. I'm like, look, I'm drinking your leg. It's Hoppy, right?
All right, let me ask you a question. This has nothing to do with anything, and it's just for me personally. But your friend who was having ACL or had ACL surgery, I had this surgery twice, long time ago, like 30 to 32 years ago, two different occasions. What is his recovery time from this?
A couple weeks, I think.
Weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, by that, what do you mean by that? Like what
happens?
Well,
so I don't know exactly. I mean, well, here's an even more obvious thing. Like, look at Joe Burrow. Like, he just had his whole knee snapped in half. And given probably the best medical technology on earth, given who he is and how much money's at stake, he's expected to be up and playing by the season opener next year.
Yeah. Like, to me, that makes sense. Like a year. Like, so because my ACLs both times, it was like, you will be 100% in a year.
Mm-hmm. When I say weeks, like he told me, like he's on like that massive like thing around his leg for weeks, and like it's going to be hard for him to get around for.
Yeah, so he has crutches, and or I guess he can walk with a boot or whatever. And then because I had to do lots of therapy, and then and actually the first one I did great. I bounced back, it was amazing. And then I did the second one, and that leg is still stiffer. Like, I still have trouble hyperextending it. Like, once you do the second one, you like whatever, And
what can
anyway, I assume it's a lot less time than it used to be.
And what could only be described as like the worst timing possible. So he goes and has the surgery, and when he gets home, his internet's out.
Oh God!
Like, can you imagine? And it wasn't like his own router. Like rough ballpark timing is like on a Friday he had the surgery and his internet wasn't fixed until like Tuesday. And he's like, he just sat on a chair to burn mobile data. Like, can you imagine? And he told me like they're like much like us. They only have like Netflix and I think like like those types of services, not the standard cable. Can you just imagine? Anyways.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was
I can because I've been
there. The storm days there, but that didn't happen, so that's nice.
You know what you can't imagine, Paul? I was buying Cyberpunk from the PlayStation Store.
I was amused to see someone defending this game today.
Oh, God, it's bad.
Guys, how bad does it have to be when the game maker apologized, explained how they were going to fix it over a period of months, offered anyone who wanted one a refund, and then Sony literally ejected it from their store and will give refunds to anyone who bought it? I mean, even Duke Nukem Forever did not suffer from this problem when it was released. And
then Microsoft announced, it was like 20 minutes ago, they're not pulling the game from the store, but they're extending the timeline from when you bought the game to get a refund. So
And to be clear, the game is mostly problematic on console, I guess, and especially problematic, I guess, if you have like a previous gen console.
Yes.
Kind of like the Halo Infinity thing, or Infinite or whatever, where it's like, does this look right? Is it supposed to look better than this? Oh well. Keanu Reeves, another bomb.
Yeah, look what there's like a meme. I think it's from The Godfather. It's like, look what they did to my boy. Like Keanu has like this. The guy has just such an aura around him of just like good things because he's lived such a terrible life that he is like giving it back in bucketfuls, and then he gets included in this game, and it's just a dumpster fire. It's
crazy how bad it is. You know? And his appearance at whatever that was at E3 or something or whatever, or maybe it was a Sony event. I don't remember what it was, but it was obviously the highlight for the game. And then it's been downhill ever since.
Pretty much.
It was a Microsoft event, actually. Was it a Microsoft event?
Yeah, it was E3, I think. Yeah, because Microsoft actually has a marketing deal with Cyberpunk.
Do they? Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they can put that in Taco Bell.
Well, probably more filling than most of the stuff. And
when if you're done playing a crappy game, you can spend a couple hours in the bathroom.
And this one is interesting only because I think it's still just the ending of Skype. They brought Together Mode, which is Together Mode. Hopefully people know what that is, to Skype, which at some point they're just going to be like, yeah, you notice how Skype is like basically Teams? Yeah, we're just going to get rid of that name. And then just...
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the Chris Capicella thing that we had on Windows Weekly, but I asked him about this and whether they foresaw, Skype going away. And he was like, yeah. And he's, the details are not worked out yet or whatever. And obviously you have to manage brand transitions carefully. But yeah, of course. I mean, these are two things that, step on each other's toes a little bit. And plus, Microsoft has a little bit of history here. I mean, they got rid of Skype for Business when they felt like Teams was kind of there. I think you could argue otherwise or whatever, but that's what they did. And they can't do that for Skype for consumers until that's the case as well, right?
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to do something funky like it's Teams powered by Skype.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that's literally how Chris Capicella described it.
Really?
Not that they would use that branding, but that internally they think of Teams meetings as being powered by Skype technology because it is, and I mean, if you're familiar with Windows 2000 and how it came up when, on the boot screen, it was like, Windows 2000 powered by NT technology. I mean, you could make a case for that. You could even, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to do this, but I could almost imagine a Skype call could be called like a a Teams call. Skype.
Yeah, like a little logo to click the call button is just like the Skype thing, and like
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be a 2021, 2020. What year are we in? 2012, 13, something like that. 1933.
2020 still, and anyway, yeah, I bet late next year will be the beginning of the transition.
I think so too. Yeah, there. Oh, didn't do it.
What's happening?
That.
Yeah.
And today's podcast, as a reminder, is brought to you by Security Unlocked, a new podcast where actually my buddy Nick and his friend Natalia take a closer look at the latest innovations in security research, threat intelligence, data science, with a special focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Usually my script is hanging up here, and it's so much better. But anyways, we'll do it this way. So be sure to listen in and subscribe with links down in the description below. It's a good podcast. We've gotten a lot of good feedback about it. So have they.
Script selfie? What?
So usually, so I have this script because... it's marketing script, right? And usually you can see my daughter's very fancy tape here. And I have it taped above the webcam. So it looks like I'm looking into your soul as I'm reading this.
Yep.
But the tape failed me. Much like tape backup in the enterprise will fail you at some point. My tape holding up my script failed me. And it fell. And when you were talking about something before, I ran and grabbed it. And so then I put it here. And then, it just looks bad, like if you're staring down at the screen. Like I try, and so here we are.
I'm convinced, by the way, that because you mentioned the tape backup thing, that every tape backup that was made in the late 90s and early 2000s was never restored and never could have worked. I'm convinced that technology never actually worked.
Oh well, it's still widely used. It works. It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
probably
right. Yeah, if you think it's like everyone thinks they're getting like a system image backup kind of a thing, and it's like,
Well, somebody pointed out to me and they said, actually, tape's really reliable. The problem here is that you have 7,000 tapes. Yeah. And one of those 7,000 probably fails, but on a percentage basis, really good. But when it's that one tape that you need,
they're going to go back to that Coleco Adam cassette tape thing. That probably was pretty good.
Maybe we can put it all on zip disks. I think that's still the future.
Yeah, or whatever that optical disc thing is that the Next had in the beginning.
Remember the laser disc things? They were like the size of vinyl records.
LPs. Yep. Yeah, and they came in sheaths, and you would push the sheath into the machine and then pull the empty sheath out, and the disc would be in there. Like you were never supposed to have the disc out in the world, you know.
Yeah, I remember the middle school I went to, I think invested like heavily in these things, and they had a bunch of them, and I remember we used them like twice. And then the DVD came along, and it was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of useless. Like
my dad had this kind of machine, and I think it was Empire Strikes Back I watched on it one time, and there was probably like 3 discs, so you had to push the thing in, pull it out, flip it over, push it in. You know, like it was like an album. But 1 disc was never enough for a movie, so you always had to have it like at least 2, I think. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like a 8-track in a way. Like you had to keep flipping. Well, you didn't flip it from 8-track, but you know what I mean. Like,
anyways. So you tried to bring this up earlier in the week, but I had to do a virtual conference, and I just turned off the podcast effectively. But Microsoft quietly launched a password manager.
Oh, yeah. Through Authenticator, yeah.
Through Authenticator. And so
let me ask you, though, because you had, I don't want to call it a rumor, but you had heard that Microsoft was working on a password manager at one point, right? Mm-hmm. And so is this that?
I guess so.
Right.
I mean, we initially kind of heard that it was going to be part of Teams for Life or whatever they're calling the consumer version.
Like the Microsoft 365 consumer stuff.
Yeah, and they very, very briefly showed like some sort of password sharing functionality in one of their infamous Sizzler videos. But here we are in the dark hours of 2020, and we just got it through Authenticator, and it is extremely basic. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's basically at this point an encrypted text file because you can't generate passwords, you can't enter website it's just the passwords. But
Yep. So I've enabled it. I'm just going to keep an eye on it and see what it looks like. One of the questions I know I've got waiting for me for the Ask Paul thing today is something about password managers and what do I use and blah 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 and all that stuff. And I mean, honestly, right now I don't use a third-party password manager. I go through the Edge password manager. And then sync that to mobile. And then because at one point I had been using Chrome, I have in Chrome most of my passwords, right? So on mobile, I use Android. So Android has picked that up. So it already has that stuff. So sometimes on mobile, I'll miss one. I don't have a password or whatever. But I'm hoping this will put it over the top. So obviously, because I'll just I'll have the one master list of passwords, and you can use it as a password manager or like a password autofill, I guess we'll call it, on mobile. Mm-hmm. So it seems like a good idea, but you're right. It's very basic. So I think for most people, I wouldn't recommend it yet. Plus, it only works with Microsoft accounts, too. That's the other limitation. If you have a Microsoft commercial account configured, you can't use this thing. Although my understanding is an admin in a Microsoft 365 environment can, in fact, okay it.
Yes.
But I'm guessing most don't even know about it, so probably have not.
Yep. So, anyways.
Yeah, that's big news, I think.
Yeah. I'll be very curious to see, and this is like a long-tailed future, if they would ever offer a migration path from 1Password over to this. I'm not holding my breath for that, but...
I don't know anything about how this works, but I assume that 1Password and LastPass and all the other solutions must have a way to export your passwords in a way that like Chrome could import them, right? It has to, right? So if that's the case, then you should be able to do that to Edge, and that would get it into this system, and that would be a way to do it. But there's got to be a way to export your data.
Export data. Let's see if you can. Well, it says that you can.
Well, I mean, it has to be, right? I mean, I don't use those things. I don't know how it works. But.
No, I did it when I used to use LastPass, and I did the same thing. So I know you can export from LastPass, and according to this, you can, either to a CSV or a .text. So.
Yeah, and then once you have them in a text file, they're perfectly safe. So I mean, why even use anything else?
I highly recommend you just put them in the footer of your emails, and that'll
just rename it to .ini, and it will be it's like adding encryption to it. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. One thing that was emailed to me, actually I emailed Microsoft asking, because there was a Reuters post out, I think yesterday, that says that Microsoft was on the victim list for the SolarWinds hack. And they are very, very strongly denying that they have any...
well, I mean, did you see the Frank Shaw tweet?
Yeah, it said that they were denying that they were not compromised, that they have the software, but it did not exploit or get access to any data, is what I was told. Did Frank?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to keep looking at it, obviously, but the problem with this thing is the scope of it is much broader than was originally thought, and happily it includes some nuclear systems. So what could go wrong?
Yeah, so
I guess they were upset about the election or something. I don't know.
So to be very clear, this is what Frank tweeted. Let's see, he tweeted a couple times. He tweeted it to actually the same message to a bunch of people. He says, like other SolarWinds, and this comes from the head of communications for Microsoft. Like other SolarWind customers, we have been actively looking for indicators of this actor and can confirm that we detected malicious SolarWare binaries in our environment, which we isolated and removed. We have not found evidence of access to production services or customer data. So that's kind of what you need to know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. The problem that's going to be here is there's a whole bunch of companies that have been compromised and they know it, but they don't know to what extent they've been compromised. So over the next 6 to 8 months, you're going to be like, yes, our data was compromised. Here's your free 1 year of credit monitoring, and don't call us, we'll call you.
Right. I wonder if they'll offer a free year of credit monitoring to the Pentagon.
Don't worry, those nukes, they've got credit monitoring. They're not gonna take you out much.
Oh boy.
So that's a fun one to keep watching. So anything else going on in your Call of Duty world, Pum?
Yeah, I will say, I mentioned this to you yesterday privately, but I've been fighting through it, so to speak. I don't really know. Like, honestly, the truth is, like, if you play a Call of Duty game over the course of a year, and you play, like I play the hardcore modes, what's a kill to death ratio, right? Is the thing I think about. Not wins and losses. I'm more concerned with my personal score. And I don't know. I'd have to go look. I mean, even on a game that I'm really good at, like Black Ops 4, what's my KD ratio is what that's called overall, or what that used to be called. It might be like 1.4, 1.5, somewhere in that range. It's not like it's 2 to 1, but my I started off negative on this one, meaning under 1.0. And I kind of fought it up to be even. And I got to tell you, it's hard. Like, I have games that I do fantastically in, and by fantastically I mean 20 to 30 points, 20 to 30 kills versus 3 to 5 deaths or something, like really good ratio. But my overall ratio is still only, right to this day, is 1.06. So it's hard fighting back from from when you're doing poorly. But I think the hard thing for me is that I'm used to, like, it's actually kind of not fun when you would just struggle the whole time, if that makes sense. So even if between the time I ate lunch and this show, I played a couple of games. Like the first game, I went like 19 and 19. And it's like, that's a slog,
Yeah.
It's not fun. So I'm trying, if I have a couple of games where it just goes south and like a couple in a row, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I just stop playing it. I just need not to be doing that. But sometimes I'll have, several in a row where it goes great, or it goes well enough that I can, I don't know. What's your deal though? You play
Warzone.
Warzone.
Like, and they kind of messed it up, like, because they just took the weapons from Black Ops and just vomited them into the game without like any real consideration for like weapon balancing.
Cyber, what's that game called? Cyber whatever. Cyberpunk devs to do this.
Yeah, it's not. The game is at least playable, although they did introduce some fantastic bugs with it along the way. The problem is that you'll have 2 guns. So for whatever reason, Black Ops doesn't pay to license gun names. I don't know what the deal is. So
oh god, so they have it's the same, like it's an AK-47, but they call it like a AR-46 or some stupid thing or whatever.
Most people know what the M4A1 is like. That's like the standard military rifle, but in Black Ops they call it the XM4. So you have both of these guns, which are effectively the same thing, just in the game. But they have different characteristics and attributes, and like someone's gonna be like, "Well, I'll just pick the better one" or whatever. But the problem is that they've really screwed people over, because what happens is, like, let's say the XM4 is better, and you want to level that gun up. Well, you have to own Black Ops to be able to do that like efficiently, and so they're kind of screwing people who didn't want to buy it, because now they can't use that gun, which is actually a better gun than the other one, and then they get left behind, or otherwise they have to pay like the $70 to go play the other game. So.
I mean, to be fair to Activision, I guess, this is the first time they've ever tried to do something like this, right? So typically, like, Warzone was was part of Modern Warfare that came out last year. So typically that game would just be like its own thing, and we would move on and move on and move on. But they decided to keep Warzone going because it's a little bit like Fortnite or whatever. So this is new. This is just new for them. Yeah, that is stupid. I don't know why they have different gun names. That's just so lame. It's like, we don't make enough money to license the.
Well, the worst is like too, like the MP5, because it's called something very similar, and it's just whatever. So yeah,
I need more maps, and I wish, God, I'm trying everything. Like, you have like perks, right? So one of the things like these games are so complex. Even the gun thing you're talking about is like, there are so many guns and they have so many different attributes. And in I don't know if you played any of the normal Black Ops Cold War modes, but I mean, you can add all kinds of attachments in every place, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know how anyone keeps track of all this stuff, but I can't keep track of game to game, but you kind of have like a number of points you can apply across all your stuff. And one thing I did do in older games was, if you have like 3 perks, I changed something so I have like 4 perks, and that's very beneficial. And I realized like a week or two ago, this is something I've been missing in this game. And actually, I Googled it because I'm like, there must be a way, and there is a way. There's wild cards, and there are 3. It's so complicated. It's like you can apply wild cards, and one of them lets you have. It's not what I want, but you can have 2 of each kind of perk, or 2, because there's 3 different types of perks. And it's close to what I want, but the problem is what I want is 2 of one type and then 1 of the other 2. But whatever, I can't do that. So, but it takes points away from me being able to build out the guns or do whatever else I was doing. I don't know. I'm getting there. It's getting there, but it's hard. It's like, I don't want this game to be work. If I wanted to go to war, I would just go to Afghanistan. I don't want to, or whatever. Like, I don't want to. I don't know. Like, it's supposed to be like a release, like a little bit of a getaway from
dopamine hit.
Something. Just a little. Let me forget that the real world is so terrible, and then you get in, and this is terrible, and it's like,
You know what you won't be working on though, Paul? Android things.
Yeah, that never went anywhere.
No, like much kind of like the Wear OS. That I guess Wear OS maybe was marginally more successful because other vendors bought in.
I mean, honestly, between Wear OS and Android things, and there are probably other examples too. This is exactly when people say things like Google's the next Microsoft. I mean, this is the proof point. I mean, they have this incredibly the most successful digital platform, just like Microsoft did, 20 years ago, and they try to build these things off of it, and not none of them, but most of them are not successful. Mm-hmm. And Android things and what used to be called Android Wear, right?
Yeah,
I think, and is now Wear OS, are things that, because Android was so successful, everything is Android something, and those Android something things are not successful, just like those Windows other things were not successful. It's interesting to watch it happen. I don't take any glee in it. I don't mean it like that, but I mean it's like, from a developer standpoint, there are so many developers that directly target Android. Making an IoT platform that uses the same APIs, or at least the same type of APIs, makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, this should work. Mm-hmm. And
clearly
did not work.
It did not work. So that's another one for the Google graveyard.
Yeah, although, people are very cynical about that because everyone has like this pet peeve Google service that they killed, and they're always, everyone gets really burned by it. Just like we do it with Microsoft, same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, in this case, I don't know. I think we're 4 years into them trying to do this. They tried different things. A year ago, they said, "Look, we're just going to target smart speakers and smart displays," and it's just not working, guys. So, I think in this case, it's not like they left millions of developers in the lurch. I don't think anyone was using it, basically. So,
maybe.
Oh well. Oh, we should talk about next week. And
we probably should.
By the way, before we leave, right?
Yeah.
So next week is Christmas, except in Canada because they do everything differently. Just kidding.
Wait, what? I was like, wait, what?
Just, they have a different Thanksgiving.
Yes, they do. Their Thanksgiving's a month early.
No, I know Christmas is Christmas. I'm kidding. Christmas is on Friday.
Yes.
Right. So I would imagine that we're probably going to do this show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
Does that sound right?
That sounds about right.
Then I think, unless something major happens, right? probably take the week between Christmas and New Year's off.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, we've been traveling a bunch lately and getting out of the house.
Traveling and
yeah, I've got some jet lag hangover from 3 years ago that I'm still working out. So
I'd give anything to have jet lag right now.
Yeah.
So am I accurately?
Yeah, I think that's about right. So effectively, what we're saying is Christmas Eve, Christmas not happening, and then the week in between Christmas and New Year's, nothing's happening. Just because it's only actually 4 days, because New Year's is conveniently on a Friday, so nothing's happening that day. But of course, if something does,
look, obviously, if there's a big news item, we'll
we can feed the hamsters and get the wheels rolling and
come in here in my pajamas with my feet and.
Paul's just coming in looking like old Saint Nick.
This is like bunny ears and stuff.
So yep, there we go. I've already got it. So there we go. And today's podcast is brought to you by Microsoft's podcast, Security Unlocked, that new one, by the way. You can find links down in the description below or go to aka.ms/securityunlocked.